Voyage.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
Every Who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton. But where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one Who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and low prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
My name is Matt Towner, and when I nearly died in a motorcycle accident, and a girl that I'd only just met came to my hospital bedside, I thought it was the start of a beautiful love story. But in fact, it was the beginning of a nightmare. I was 40 years old when the global financial crisis hit. I was a very successful real estate agent in a beautiful beachside town, Byron Bay, in Australia, making $150,000 a year surfing and playing golf and being social. Then the global financial crisis hit. In that first year, I made $7,000, one sale. Byron Bay is pretty much a luxury item and no one was buying luxury items. Some friends and I had purchased 50 acres overlooking the beach and the mountains, and we were in a lot of trouble in terms of trying to pay our bills, as were people all over the world. The bank basically said if we didn't sell up, they would. So we had to sell, and we bought a property for $3 million. Only felt like 3 days. It was probably 3 months before the global financial crisis, but we'd held on for a year and we just couldn't hold on anymore. It sold for just over $1.5 million. We all walked away with absolutely nothing. By this stage, we were just ready, all of us, to do something before we considered whether we had to declare ourselves bankrupt or not. We went to Thailand, and we wanted to go on an adventure and get as far away from civilization as we could. The night before I left my home in Byron Bay, Australia, to go on a motorcycle adventure in the jungles of Thailand, I actually went on a first date with a gorgeous girl, and it went very well.
Have you ever thought about politics?
I try not to.
You have a face for it, and the eyes. I'd vote for you.
Hardly.
Don't be modest. Why are you single?
Just haven't found the right person, I suppose. I could ask you the same question.
I want someone doing something with their lives. Most men, at least the men I've met, are very happy not to.
You need a better class of companion.
The search continues. How will you know when you find her? The right person.
I think I'll just know. Right now, I'm at a weird point in my life. A lot of things I thought would be my life have changed. I'm still finding my way, to be honest.
Not a good time to be alone, sounds like.
No, I suppose not.
From everything you've told me, it sounds like you've already accomplished a lot. I'm sure you'll find your way through this.
Yeah, I hope so.
Know so. If you know so, it'll happen.
That easy, eh?
It can be, yes.
You're a very positive person.
Life's too short to not go for the things we want.
And what do you want?
Tonight.
You're trouble.
Good trouble.
I'd promised that when I returned from my motorcycle adventure after 2 weeks, we'd go on our second date. Sadly, that didn't happen because I had an accident literally on the first day of that motorcycle adventure. hired some dirt bikes and went from Phuket up over the mountains and into the forests and found a little bar on the beach and sat and watched the sunset. It was a beautiful way to get away from the world. But on the way back, I was certainly being way too wild and free, careless and carefree. No helmet, no shoes, board shorts, singlet. And as I came over a hill, I got some air. I can still see the pothole that I knew I could not miss. As I landed, the whole bike turned sideways and the handlebars went through my stomach and came out the back of my spine, and I went down the mountain with the bike basically inside me. By the time I landed at the bottom of the hill, I knew that I'd broken my back straight away. It was classic Thailand. There were people all around me. I didn't know where they'd come from, out of the jungle basically. Couldn't speak because I'd broken my ribs, perforated my lungs. I'd fractured my skull, my spine, my ankle, my knee, my shoulder, my elbow, broken 3 ribs, and had a brain hemorrhage. My friend who was behind me, by the time he got to me, there were people all around me, and he didn't want me to see the look on his face because he says I was in 4 pieces. I kept saying, my back, don't touch me. But there was someone in uniform there. I still to this day don't know whether it was police or security. And he said, okay, ambulance. And just as I relaxed, they picked me up and put me in the back of a flatbed truck. I spent 40 minutes in the back of a flatbed truck with a broken spine and broken everything from head to toe on the right-hand side of my body. My skull was split wide open, my eyes kept filling with blood. They were holding me down, 4 people, basically, 1 on each limb, waving smelling salts under my nose to bring me back into consciousness, back from death. And every part of my body was moving as the truck was moving. The crazy thing is the doctors, specialists have explained to me that people who end up in a wheelchair, it's not because you have a broken spine, it's because you have a broken spinal cord. And I spent 40 minutes on that truck being held down, going in and out of death, and my spinal cord still didn't break, which your spinal cord is like a string of toothpaste, it was explained to me. That's how fragile it is. So it was certainly a miracle. I have a rugby upbringing. That's how I first started travelling. I got contracted at 21 to play rugby for San Diego. And I remember it was like when you're running on or off a rugby field and there's a tunnel of people either side of you cheering you on. It was like that, but the opposite, friends and family saying goodbye as I was going towards those pearly gates, and then the smelling salts would bring me back. They took me to a public hospital first because I had flashbacks of something like a Vietnam War movie, but I was still conscious, or in and out of consciousness, and again, with hardly being able to speak, I kept saying, insurance, I have insurance. I woke up 3 days later coming out of a coma in a 5-star private hospital, which was brand new, the Bangkok Hospital, Phuket, and they'd stitched me all up, but they couldn't operate until I signed waivers because there was no guarantees I was ever going to be able to walk again. Lucky that I was alive. My head looked like a football with the stitches, the laces all the way down the top. They'd had to shave my head. They had not yet put metal in my spine or metal in my ankle, but I still have both of those today. And I was in traction there for weeks, and then I was in that hospital for months before I could be flown back to Australia, and then in a wheelchair and on crutches for about 12 months. It was literally a day-by-day process to learn to walk and talk again. I am very lucky to be alive. The first thing that came to me when I came out of my coma was a voice. It was my voice, but it wasn't me. It's strange to say, but whatever you believe in the bigger picture of things, this voice, my voice, said, this is going to be the best thing that ever happens to you. And I truly believe, I know that if I had had the opposite voice or mantra to that, I would be either dead or in a wheelchair. It was that power of positive thinking that got me to where I am today. I've been through a lot of healing therapies, rehabilitations with a lot of people who've had a lot lesser accidents than me. but a lot less positive spirit, and I see them still with either serious physical issues or painkiller addictions and things like that, which I truly believe everything has its place, but the power of positive thinking can be more important than anything else. I find everything funny. A lot of people don't find that funny, but I have to laugh. I was being way too careless and wild and free. That's what we were going there to do, but I was an extremist, always have been, always will be. But I needed a slap, and or the universe or whatever, I gave myself a serious slap. Dave, who was travelling with me, was not only one of my property partners that we'd purchased 50 acres overlooking Byron Bay with waterfalls and forest and dwellings, and it was a paradise. But we'd certainly overextended ourselves, especially as the world then completely changed. We just couldn't keep up with the payments. But at the same time, we'd gone back a long way. We were best of friends. I owned a nightclub in Byron Bay and then a real estate agency, so I joked that I knew everyone and all their dirty secrets. And Dave and I were partners in that nightclub, and he also owned the local cinema. We were the best of friends and still are to this day. I think to this day he's still more in shock than I am because of what he had to experience in terms of seeing me in pieces and then following that truck not knowing if I was going to make it or not. Then even the days that I was in a coma and then the time to wait to know whether I could walk again, which it was close to that 2-week mark before I'd first phoned another great mate of ours who was in charge of all of my insurance. I'm now the biggest fan of insurance, which is one thing I espouse in my books, and I will hear that my travel insurance picked up my $200,000 hospital bill. In countries like Thailand and many countries, if I hadn't had that insurance or a credit card to be able to pay for that, I would have been left in a waiting room and I would not be alive. So insurance was a lifesaver. Those villages were a lifesaver. That brand new 5-star private hospital was a lifesaver. All of that was a lifesaver, and Dave was there to support me until I made the decision to firstly phone my friend who was in charge of all of the insurance. Again, I could hardly speak, so he then phoned my parents to let them know. I didn't want to phone anyone until I knew that I could walk again. I wanted to know the seriousness of the situation rather than people worrying from afar before anything was confirmed. And then I felt obliged to ring the girl who I'd been on a date the day before I had the accident to explain that second date wasn't going to be 2 weeks. It was going to be 2 months or more. I was in shock because I was really being a gentleman and being polite to postpone a promise, but she immediately offered to jump on a plane and fly to my hospital bedside. I was speechless. I was speechless anyway. I could really hardly speak. So I immediately thought that was either beautifully sweet or incredibly strange. But I wasn't really in any position to argue. So yeah, she flew to my hospital bedside, and for pretty much that first week that out of coma and out of surgeries, I had 3 different serious operations to put metal and bionic bits into me. I then had someone I'd only just met on a first date, but it'd been a beautiful first date, in my hospital bedside, attending to me as well as the Thai doctors and nurses were. So yeah, I wasn't complaining. I had a morphine drip, which I think by the time she arrived, I'd already overdone that and asked them to take that away because I got so carried away that I remember one night I was still in traction. So I was in a hospital bed, but I had metal coming out of me everywhere, wires, so I was literally almost raised off the bed because of my broken spine. Tubes coming out to get the fluid off my lungs and all sorts of things. It was like it really was like a scene out of The Bionic Man or some crazy movie. And I had gone so much on the morphine, which was unregulated, that I was hallucinating that I was sword fighting with dragons. And that's the night I thought, right, that's enough of the morphine. And the nurses the next morning, I was like, take that away. and I slowly but surely weaned myself off that intense pain-killing situation. I was still having to rest a lot when she arrived. One of the most painful things was redressing wounds, which they had to do every day, which was like tearing gauze off open patches where literally I could see bone, I could see some of my toes, I could see through my knee, through my elbow, you could see. It was quite very bizarre. But she was there as, she immediately jumped into the role of my girlfriend after a first date, being there supportive and caring and loving at that stage while I was in and out of a purple haze of pain. She was very convincing. 100% hook, line and sinker in every way. She immediately jumped into not just a girlfriend-like role, a wife-like role, cheering me up in every way. She was being very romantic, but also being very much my naughty nurse, which when I look back was really eccentric. But I am a bit eccentric, so that was really sweet.
What are you wearing? That's a man's coat, isn't it?
You've been so glum.
Well, it's not as if I stubbed my toe.
Fair enough. But I thought you needed something to cheer you up.
You got me a coat?
No.
Oh.
We need to check your vitals, Mr. Towner.
I'm not sure I can.
Oh, I think you can.
Oh, my. Oh.
Mr. Towner, I'm just being professional here. Are you staring at me?
I might be.
That's inappropriate.
Oh, I apologize.
This is a hospital regulation outfit, sir.
Uh-huh.
I might have gotten one a size or two too small, though. I'm pouring out of it, aren't I?
It would be ungentlemanly to say.
You just lay back, Mr. Towner. You need your rest. We wouldn't want you getting too excited.
No, certainly not.
Tell me if you see the nurse coming.
I will.
Wipe that smile off your face. I'm a professional, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Hands to yourself, Mr. Towner.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't want to get in trouble with my supervisor, do I?
I won't tell him if you won't.
Our little secret, then.
Oh my. Thank you. You didn't have to do this.
Stay in the moment, Mr. Towner. Don't go all gushy on me now.
Okay. Okay.
I had a lot of very professional care, but it was also nice to have some affectionate care, even in funny nurses' uniforms and things that she would dress up. That was fun and funny. She was already pitching me not only this white picket fence of my recovery and her nursing me back to health, which by that stage we knew was going to be a 12-month process, but then getting me onto some seminar circuit, speaking about the power of positive thinking, and being able to sell this program that she was involved in, which then allowed people to also start to have stepping stones to be able to do the same. I've always been a seminar junkie. Even from when I was in my early 20s, I was going to Anthony Robbins and Dan Millman, and I've done all of those full series, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior through to Unleash the Power Within and Robert Kiyosaki, you name it, I've done them all. And then I'd been into a position where I was speaking at property investment seminars throughout Australia and Asia about the power of positive thinking in terms of cash flow positive properties. I was all about positive investments. I had a database of over 30,000 property investors that I'd been helping to buy cash flow positive properties over a decade. And I was the perfect patsy for that at that stage. It's like a seminar speaking, multi-level marketing business where you had to pay $10,000 just to go to one of the seminars, for example, in Hawaii or in the Caribbean. It was an American-based scheme, but it had just arrived in Australia. And there was already a woman on the Gold Coast who'd made $1 million in the first year of doing this system just by introducing people who were paying $10,000 a time. But it was very much a classic Ponzi scheme. But there was always an ulterior motive, and I didn't really see it. I guess my senses were down and also numbed, not only by pain, but by painkillers and by the accident. My brother and my sister still laugh, but they weren't laughing at the time because obviously when I landed back in Australia after 3 months in intensive care in Thailand, we went immediately from the airport to my sister's house. My brother was there, my parents were there, obviously very keen to see me, and I was wheeled in by this woman who they immediately saw red flags all over. And they still talk to this day that they didn't know what to say, or they were just glad that I was alive. At that stage, I was still in a wheelchair. But they still laugh to this day that it was like something out of a misery. It was a misery moment for my family. But they know what I'm like, and they let it play out. After 3 months in hospital in Thailand, I spent 3 months in a wheelchair in her house, going back and forth from hospital for treatments and all of the things that I needed to do. And again, she was very much assisting me with that. But by this stage, because she was pitching me from my hospital bed about this whole business model, and at that stage, I was on the verge of bankruptcy from just having lost my property. I was sort of open to a new career path. I was now incapacitated. And she was offering to use my email database of over 30,000 people and create a cash flow positive income just from my story of survival. I became sort of the poster boy of this Ponzi scheme, which again had all the elements now that I look back on it and learned more about these sorts of things. All of these cult-like, especially the churchy-based, then business-aligned pyramid schemes have a very similar thing in common. They immediately indoctrinate, by this stage, there were tens of thousands of people. It was expanding all over the world, so there would have been hundreds of thousands of people. In fact, the seminar that I was wheeled to, she flew me to Hawaii to a seminar, which again I paid for, again out of the bottom of the barrel of any income that I had. There was this whole idea that don't read the media. You had to go on a total media block for a while. You listen to what we're saying about the power of positive thinking and how this model works and how it's different than the whole Western world and the capitalist system. It becomes like your own church and then your own economy. Don't believe anyone who is a negative thinker is going to just put it down and you disassociate from them, and a lot of your friends and family won't believe you, but they're going to be left behind. And it very much created this, even within my little community, the people that she was starting to recruit, some of whom were friends of mine, it became their own network that then you weren't sort of associating with anyone else. Only people that were in this Tupperware-style club that were meeting for meetings. And then as soon as I got back to her place, it was very much a strict regime. I was certainly being fed and taken care of, but instead of it being a very beautiful way, it was pretty harsh. She was a very hard taskmaster, And basically it was her way or no way.
Matt? Matt?
I'm here.
You drank all the milk.
I had some cereal.
Now I've got no milk for my tea.
I'm sorry.
We talked about this before. When you finish something, you tell me.
I forgot. The medication makes me a bit loopy, you know.
That's an excuse.
I would get you more milk if I could.
But you can't. I get the groceries every week, and had I known we were out of milk, I'd have gotten it. Just a word or two. That's all I ask. I care for you morning and night. Is there anything I don't do for you?
I guess not.
Then is this too much to ask for? For this basic courtesy?
No. Sorry.
I forgive you.
Thanks.
Just don't do it again. All right?
Okay.
We need to do your exercises.
I'm a bit tired at the moment.
From what? All you do is sit around.
I didn't sleep well.
You won't get better if we don't do your exercises. It's best to get them done. Straight away.
Okay.
Don't give me that look. This is for your own good.
All right.
After we do your exercises, I want you to have a look at this email that I'm sending out about the program.
Perhaps you should slow down on those. People don't like being bombarded with a lot of emails in short order.
Bombarded.
You've sent 3 in 3 days.
This program will help people. We're not selling steak knives here. You should be dead, Matt. The power of positive thinking is the only reason you're alive right now. Don't you want to give that gift to others?
I just think a breather would be good.
Are you saying you won't help me?
No, I guess not.
All right then.
She was very focused on, especially once she had the access to my database, on just constantly following this model that was all, this was very much early days of these online systems, but you followed the leader. And that's literally how it worked. So the person above her would tell her what to do, and then she would get people under her and tell them what to do. And I was one of those, even unbeknownst to me in some ways. I was just being told what to do, but then pushed my wheelchair out of the way while she could do everything and had access to all of my social media, which was pretty early in those days, but still after 30,000 people on an email database, I think I had close to 10,000 in social medias, which again then went horribly wrong. There were times when I was being treated like a disabled child in a wheelchair, and I had a very grumpy matron hitting me with a wooden ruler. It was when I remember literally she wasn't letting me out of her sight for, it was probably 3 months. I'd done 3 months in intensive care in Thailand, and I was 3 months in her house and still in a wheelchair. But there was a moment when I was left alone. And again, there had been all these rules, but there was no watching any news, no reading newspapers, no, this whole cult-like Ponzi scheme. You weren't allowed to even Google the company. There was very strict rules about, just had to stay focused on this whole goal and this model. But I took the opportunity to stray outside that, and as soon as I started Googling, because at this stage it had been in Australia for 3 months, so there had been cracks that started to show. Firstly, back in America, where it had been going for a year or more, and there were multi-millionaires from, again, anyone at the top. That's how those things work. But then I sort of realised the reality of what it was, and that there were people who were going to get burnt, because basically it was, especially Australia, is nowhere near the size of America. And I then realised what she was sending out to my database that I'd offered cash flow positive properties to for a decade and had some very successful clients. In fact, I'd ridden the boom of Australian real estate and made people very happy, which was always my goal. It was then that I saw the issues. Then I sent an email myself. I was at a point then I'd weaned myself off morphine. I'd gone from being on intravenously in the hospital to then on painkillers when I was in the wheelchair. But I was slowly but surely weaning myself off those to the point that I was even trying to not take as many as she was giving me. Yeah, it was then after that 3 months mark that I decided to get out of there. So I sent an email to my database to say that these emails aren't coming from me and it's not a property investment. A lot of the times she would just get really angry if I ever suggested due diligence, because she was sucked right down that rabbit hole, which a lot of people were. That's how those churches, those cults, those business models work. And I rang Dave, my friend who had been with me in the motorcycle accident. He came and picked me up and we got out of the house.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
Matt Towner
Is not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options. To leave your callback number, press 5.
Matt, I don't know where you've gone or what you think you're doing, but I know you couldn't have gone far on your own. You know, after everything I've done for you, this is what you're doing. I was there for you. What other woman on planet Earth would do for you the things I did? Upturn their entire life to care for you. I let you in my home. How could you do this to me? You're the most ungrateful man I've ever met. I thought you were special. I thought that you understood what I'm trying to build. I thought we could do it together. I guess I was wrong. Good luck without me.
We were literally making a run for it and getting out of there. And I remember feeling such a sense of freedom. And we actually went for a beer. It was the first time I had a beer after 3 months in hospital and 3 months in nurse's care. It was then that I got the phone call from a friend of mine who used to run a lot of my business online things. I'd never forget, she said, "Are you online?" And I said, "No, I'm back where Dave and I had our nightclub for the first time, celebrating that." And she said, "Someone's hacked in and is posting everything to everyone that you're not only bankrupt, but you're on child sex charges, and suggesting that's you." I can still remember the feeling of the ball in your throat. That I was like, what? We went straight from the bar to the Byron Bay police station. And again, the more that I've looked into this since, it's classic textbook again from those sort of cults, churches, Ponzi schemes. As soon as anyone starts to discredit them or point fingers, the first thing they do is create a smear campaign to discredit that person immediately. It's wrong that people can do this without any evidence. She'd already beaten me to the police station and told the police that I had sent her hundreds of threatening text messages and emails. I hadn't sent one. I hadn't even been able to have access to them. Basically, I then couldn't do anything because charges had already been put against me, which was hilarious but not funny at all. I then went down the road of enlisting a lawyer, fighting these AVO, it's called an Australian Apprehended Violence Order, against me by this woman who was basically just trying to discredit me, because by this stage, all in this same afternoon, while I was enjoying my first beer, my freedom, and thinking that I'd nipped it in the bud, sent an email saying, "This isn't a positive investments email that's coming from me. Do your own due diligence." I wasn't doing anything to the level that I didn't expect where it would go next. I just thought, okay, that's me taking charge of my life, of my database, of my business. But the email that she then sent was to 30,000 business contacts that I'd created over a decade, as well as posting all over social media. 5,000 people on Facebook and 30,000 people on an email that she'd sent this email from me, as if it was from me. It was even wording this whole sad story that I had to tell people that I was bankrupt and on child sex charges, which we then took to court. She didn't even turn up. There was no evidence of any threatening emails or text messages. The case was thrown out of court. It cost me $8,000 in legal fees. My lawyer, I remember, said, well, where's the retribution of my client's costs? And the judge said, well, it doesn't work like that. Which, again, sadly is a problem with the legal system in some ways, that people can just make accusations with no evidence whatsoever and then walk away. And I haven't seen her since. All we could do is go back to the pub and have another beer. Dave and I did that, and again watched the sunset in our beautiful town of Byron Bay, but this time after one more beer before sunset, instead of jumping on motorbikes, we got a taxi.
Hope Lives Here is a production of Voyage Media. The series is produced by Nat Mundel, Robert Mitas, and Dan Benamor. This episode, Positivity Nearly Killed Matt Towner, but it saved his life, too, was written and directed by Dan Benamor. Executive produced by Matt Towner. You can learn more about Matt's life by reading his book Positivity, available now. A link is in the show notes. Starring Jonathan Regier and Laura Bellomo. Edited, sound designed, and mixed by James Scully. If you're enjoying the show, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you're listening, and subscribe now for future episodes.